Realistic Outlook. Published in Dawn, Realistic Outlook. Khakan Hassan Najib published October 1, 2022. The writer was an advisor at the Ministry of Finance. The IMF is considered the financial doctor of the last resort. A core function of the fund is bailouts to countries struggling to meet international obligations in return for implementing agreed conditionalities. Programs focus on balancing budgets, creating market-based exchange rate regimes, privatization, liberalizing trade and easing capital flows. Most IMF-supported programs in Pakistan have ended short of the finishing line. The country could not complete the agreed program arrangements. The only program successfully completed was in 2016. The key takeaway from that experience is that astute management of the program by the country is essential. A professional team, which one was honored to support, contributed to framing the Memorandum of Economic and Financial Policies (MEFP) on which the program was based. Regular follow-ups by Pakistan ensured implementation of the benchmarks. The second takeaway is that completing an IMF program is a necessary, but not sufficient, condition for prosperity. A program may alleviate a balance of payments crisis, but much more is required to cure the underlying ills and prevent crises from recurring. Pakistan seems to have missed out on this count. The third takeaway is that the design of the program determines the quality of the path of fiscal and external sector adjustments. There is a cost to bear for program adjustments, which can fall hard on the people. It tends to erode a government's political capital and restrict its decision-making capacity. Currently, the IMF can help overcome Pakistan's dollar liquidity crunch. The crisis has been exacerbated by the delay in completing the 7th review. Resultantly, there was a drawdown of reserves to $7.6 billion as of August 29, 2022, a whopping fiscal deficit of 5,280 billion rupees, an unfinanceable current account deficit of $17.4 billion in FY22 and the rupee's disorderly movement. A review of the IMF's extended fund facility for Pakistan can help develop realistic expectations of outcomes. The continuation of exchange rate flexibility, a restrictive monetary policy stance, rationalization of energy prices and cuts in fuel and power subsidies are key adjustments. Increasing the petroleum development levy to 50 rupees per litre has been agreed on at a time of inflation. Fiscal adjustment overall is envisaged at around 3% of GDP for FY23, unprecedented in our history and an uphill task. Bolstering revenues is suggested through an assortment of taxation and contingency measures. It is encouraging to see some action on the revenue administration side, an area requiring the most focus. On the expenditure side, lukewarm measures such as the ban on some purchases and cutting travel and utilities are part of the current MEFP. It is striking that investment is estimated to rise to 14.7% of GDP in FY23, in spite of contractionary policies, an aspect needing revision. Routine measures include updating the debt strategy along with the implementation of an AML/CFT anti-money laundering, combating the financing of terrorism framework and the capitalization of banks. Income support programs and the social sector are to increase in size and coverage, a good sign. We developed a circular debt management plan in 2014. It continues to be mentioned in the area of structural reforms in the MEFP. Renegotiating power purchase agreement terms is envisaged. Converting expensive government guaranteed debt in the power sector into cheaper public debt is planned. This translates to a bailout of the power sector by the taxpayer and may be reconsidered. Pursuing mild reforms like private participation in discos may be fair under the MEFP. However, restructuring discos requires much deeper thinking. A state-owned enterprise law is required to be passed, when most SOs already function under the Companies Ordina NCE 2016. Some minor banks form the divestment age NDA. Privatisation of SOs needs a Herculean effort, far beyond that envisaged under the MEFP. The writer was an advisor at the Ministry of Finance. Published in Dawn, October 1, 2022. The Woodrow Wilson International Center for Scholars, or Wilson Center, is quasi-government entity and think tank which conducts research to inform public policy. Populist noun. A person, especially a politician, who strives to appeal to ordinary people who feel that their concerns are disregarded by established elite groups. The International Monetary Fund (IMF) is a major financial agency of the United Nations and an international financial institution, headquartered in Washington, D.C., consisting of 190 countries. Its stated mission is working to foster global monetary cooperation, secure financial stability, facilitate international trade, promote high employment and sustainable economic growth, and reduce poverty around the world. Formed in 1944, started on the 27th of December 1945. Memorandum on Economic and Financial Policies for 2013-14-2015-16. Vulnerabilities and boost inclusive growth through macroeconomic reform. 2016, to be supported by the international arrangement under the extended the balance of payments BOP. Records all economic transactions in goods, services, and assets of the country with the rest of the world for a specified time period, usually a year. In simple terms, it is a systematic accounting balance sheet of the country and includes both debit and credit transactions. Political capital can be understood as a type of currency used to mobilize voters, achieve policy reform, or accomplish other political goals. Although not a literal form of capital, political capital is often described as a type of credit, or a resource that can be banked, spent or misspent, invested, lost, and saved. Liquidity crunch. A time when cash resources are in short supply and demand is high. During a liquidity crunch, businesses and consumers are charged high interest rates on loans which are more difficult to obtain. Also known as liquidity crisis and credit crunch. A current account deficit indicates that a country is importing more than it is exporting. Emerging economies often run surpluses, and developed countries tend to run deficits. A current account deficit is not always detrimental to a nation's economy. External debt may be used to finance lucrative investments. Fiscal year FY. A fiscal year is a one-year period that companies and governments use for financial reporting and budgeting. A fiscal year is most commonly used for accounting purposes to prepare financial statements. Exchange rate noun. The value of one currency for the purpose of conversion to another. The exchange rate of the gross domestic product (GDP) is the total monetary or market value of all the finished goods and services produced within a country's borders in a specific time period. Gross domestic product is the monetary value of all finished goods and services made within a country during a specific period. What is a contractionary policy? Contractionary policy is a monetary measure referring either to a reduction in government spending, particularly deficit spending, or a reduction in the rate of monetary expansion by a central bank. In Pakistan, circular debt is a public debt which is a cascade of unpaid government subsidies, which results in accumulation of debt on distribution companies. Distributed Cooperative Organizations (DISCOs) are AP2P commons, cooperative and feminist economic alternative to decentralized autonomous organizations (DAOs). Divestment is the process of selling subsidiary assets, investments, or divisions of a company in order to maximize the value of the parent company. Macroeconomics is a branch of economics that studies how an overall economy, the markets, businesses, consumers, and governments, behave. Macroeconomics examines economy-wide phenomena such as inflation, price levels, rate of economic growth, national income, gross domestic